Hello, Rush Nation. Welcome to the 5 Yard Rush Daily Fantasy Sports Show. I'm Mark Ferguson, and we have a barn burner of a show for you tonight. We're going to be looking at season-long contests. We're going to look at Sunday Redzone on FanTeam. We've got free rolls. We've got prizes to give away, and we may even talk some DFS content amongst all of that lot. Joining me as ever and taking a break from his busy Strictly schedule, it's Nick Owen. How are we doing, Nick?
Don't you mean Adam?
Yes, well, you're enjoying it too much, aren't you?
I am. You know what? It's the highlight of my Saturdays at the moment. Learning all these dances. I'm fingers crossed I'll be out this Sunday because then it means I can sit down and watch Redzone without any interruptions.
Well, obviously, you got to let us know if you're really going to kiss Katya a couple of weeks ago. But
no comment.
Yeah, we started. Anyway, here you go. Turning into a Strictly pod. Just before we go on, just quickly tell us about what happened after last week's show, Nick, and your public service announcement about do your teams for
man,
this season long.
A typical example of me not following my own advice. Do not forget that there is a deadline with the season-long contest, and that deadline is in fact this evening. It is tonight. We said that on the show last week. I think I said it. I quoted it, and then just completely ignored that deadline. Thankfully, didn't have a big impact. So I've only dropped about 100 spaces. So I'll take that.
Not too bad. So also joining us to add a little bit of class this week is the fantasy legend that is in the UK. He's the coolest kid on the block. I know him as the king of TikTok, but tonight we're going to call him Jack. Jack Humphrey, how's it hanging?
I'm good. Thanks for that introduction, Mark. I wouldn't call myself cool, and I wouldn't call myself a fantasy legend either. but thank you. That was a really nice introduction. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, you're doing lots of content at the moment, Jack.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm really enjoying playing on FanTeam at the minute, and just sort of gravitated towards FanTeam over other stuff at the minute. And I love my DFS, and I sort of mentioned it. When did I come on with you guys? Was it August, July, some around then?
Yeah, it was in the off season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I sort of mentioned it then about cutting back my dynasty content, which I've cut that back fully. And I'm expecting to cut some leagues this year. So we'll be full on DFS as of next year.
So we've all got no chance basically after that. Once you're concentrating full time.
Well, you all have a chance, because if I do what I done last week and change my team at 5? Well, it kicks off at 5 last week. So I changed my team at 5 to 5. I swapped out because I wanted to get Noah Fant in. So I swapped out Michael Pittman, put T.Y. Hilton in, and then put Noah Fant in. Really worked out well, because if I'd stuck with my original lineup, I would have won about £5,000 last week. So really worked out well. That.
Oh man!
Don't do that ever.
No, well, it's like I see the reasoning behind T.Y. Hilton. Everyone else was playing Pittman.
Yeah, but
I see
they played him for a good reason last week.
Yeah, it was just one of those. He's a good play.
Yeah,
I
was at London Bridge Belushi's watching Redzone, and then he scored that first touchdown. I was like, oh, this is okay. So Carson Wentz is my quarterback. So I was like, this is okay as long as T.Y. gets the next one, and then Pittman goes in again. I was like, oh my god.
So we have some really exciting news for everybody this week. The exclusive 5-Yard Rush free roll on FanTeam is back.
Back by popular demand.
Yeah, back by popular demand. People asking us last week where it was and stuff, and where's the code? People even asked us where the code was, and there wasn't even a contest. So let me give you the tail of the tape here. We've got a £300 guaranteed prize pool, £100 first place. It is completely free to enter, and you can have 4 entries per user, which I think is fantastic.
Wow, that's doubled.
Yeah, which I think is really good. We'll talk about that a little bit. And it's basically the 8 Sunday 6 p.m. games, which I think is nice because it means that, assuming there's not really long overtime games, the sweat is over by 9 o'clock. And I think that's really good. I think especially if you're a newbie and stuff, or you're trying to get into this stuff, rather than having to go to bed when the games are still going. So yeah, so the 4 entries max per user, I think, is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. It looks like we've already got 37 teams in there at the moment, and I've not entered any, and probably the staff haven't either. But it's great contest. Really glad that we're able to run it again. And the good news for people this time is, though I did enjoy people lighting up the DMs and sending the messages over, there is no password to enter, so you are free to enter it as and when you want.
Yeah. I was going to save that piece of information because people might turn off now, Nick. But
my bad.
Thinking it was going to be at the end. We actually just quickly around this, especially if you're new to NFL DFS, we've got an article coming out tomorrow morning with some top plays related to this contest. Actually, our very own Murph made most of the picks on that, so it's going to be some pretty good quality content there. So yeah, as Nick has already said, though, there is no password to enter this week, but there's still plenty of reasons for you to stay with us. Obviously, you're going to get some great DFS advice from two of the best in the business, Nick and Jack, but we're also giving away, right here now, tickets to this week's €8,000 Redzone contest, which will have a 4-figure first prize. I think they normally have a 4-figure first prize by the time everyone's been there. So yeah, so how are we going to? We've got a ticket each to give away. I don't know if anybody warned you about that, Jack, but we've got a ticket to give away as well.
So this is great.
Yeah, we forgot to tell you this. So what we're going to do is each of us is going to give one away. And the way you do it is you interact with us now, as it were, either through the comments on the video or through Twitter. Interact with us, get our attention, do something funny, or do some top analysis and stuff. If it's that good, I might just steal it. But yeah, it could be a picture of Nick on Strictly. It could be anything. Just do what you want.
That picture's already out there, Matt.
That is already out there, isn't it? When I wrote this, it wasn't out there. It's just a small warning, though. What won't win? If you do tag Jack with a picture of that "Hello Fellow Kids" gif, that's not winning anything, because I did that to him a couple of weeks ago when he started with TikTok. So we each have a ticket to give away. So what are you looking for, Nick? What do you reckon is going to get your attention here?
I love the comedy already from FF Thinker straight in the comments. Knows there's no password. Thanks a lot, lads. See you later. I love stuff like that. I'm here all day. I've got a lot of time for content like that. No, do you know what? What I would say with mine is, I know the pod goes live tomorrow, so I'm going to give people the opportunity to listen back on that as well before I decide who my ticket's going to. So feel free to obviously interact and make any comments through the show, but I do want to give everyone a fair shake. I will probably only announce mine maybe on Saturday at some point.
It's just too fair. What about you, Jack? What are people going to have to do?
I want to do something so similar to Nick. I'm going to probably give away mine Saturday, if that's okay with you guys, so people can have a chance to listen. I am going to mention a tight end tonight that is absolutely popping on my matchup spreadsheet. I did just put a little tweet out about this. I don't think someone's already guessed 3 and they're way off. So it's someone that you're not going to be expecting. Put it that way. So if you can guess who it is, I'll give you the free ticket. So
wow. Okay.
But I will mention this tight end tonight.
Okay, cool. Well, thankfully, we do tight ends at the end of the show, so people have to stay with us.
Tight ends matter.
And spend about half an hour talking about them as well.
Yeah, exactly. I've actually sheltered in 20 minutes for defenses this week, Nick. So yeah, so I better give mine away on the show then at some point, hadn't I? So get the comments in. So far, Sean does not win with this disappearing act. Okay, so should we talk about our season-long teams? Because Jack, you've got a season-long team as well, haven't you?
I've got a number of season.
Yeah. But Nick, can we look at yours? Well, let's look at yours first, because you had made some before. I don't know how you did last week, but the week before that, you'd actually jumped up quite a bit.
Yeah, I did. I was up to 244, 245. I have dropped a little bit this week down to 350, but it doesn't come as a surprise, mainly because the transfers I had planned last week was to get rid of Tim Patrick and replace my defense that was on a bye. And because I missed the deadline, Tim Patrick stayed in my team. And I obviously didn't have a playing defense, and I know defenses don't score very well. Tim Patrick got 9.4, which for his price, I suppose, isn't too awful. But I did have the funds to upgrade in that position, and I'm just gutted that I missed that deadline. So I've dropped back to about 350, but with 3 transfers this week, carrying 1 over. But 3 glaring issues in my team now. So Hawkinson, Swift, and the massive hole that Derrick Henry has left in the running back position. I've got my own thoughts on Swift and Hawkinson, which I'll come to, but just as a group discussion, guys, I'm assuming we've both got big shares in Derrick Henry. Who are we pivoting to?
Who are you doing, Jack?
He's high end, isn't he? So, I like Jonathan Taylor tonight. Obviously, many reasons. The Jets are dead last in the NFL to giving up the most fantasy points on the season to opposing running backs. So yeah, I would be pivoting to Jonathan Taylor. He's seeing a lot of red zone looks as well. I know that has been the Colts' struggle is actually punching the ball in the red zone, but sooner or later they're gonna start doing that, and they're running it through Jonathan Taylor down there.
Yeah, he's been on a real heater as well, hasn't he?
Yeah,
it really has. It's all at the beginning of the season looked like he was going to start losing some touches and stuff, or more touches than we'd hoped, and it was going to be a true committee, but he's just taken over. For me, I think if I'm going to do an exact swap, I think I put in Najee Harris. I'm going to spend the money.
Yep.
He's already had his bye week, and I think and he's getting so much. His usage is out of this world. The only reason I wouldn't potentially do him is because the infamous rookie wall and the fact he's had so many carries is the only thing that would work against me. You do worry he's going to hit the cliff at some point, but at the moment, for me, it's Najee Harris.
Yeah, and I think I suppose the good thing about Najee Harris is he's actually getting a lot of work passing wise as well. He's the second most targeted running back. I agree with you, Mark. I keep looking and thinking, is the cliff going to come at some point for him, or the wall as such, not the cliff? But I actually have enough funds in the bank from previous moves to go Derrick Henry to Harris and Swift to Taylor. And I'm strongly considering doing that because it gives me coverage to both, and they've both got pretty good runs for the rest of the season. I can't ignore Harris, who's got the Bears, the Lions, the Chargers, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Vikings, the Titans, the Chiefs, the Browns, and finishing up with the Ravens. There's some really good matchups in there. FanTeam's grading on them. There's nothing worse than a yellow fixture, and in fact, most are green. Which means he's coming up against pretty poor run defenses between now and the end of the season, especially over his next 3. So I'm considering going Swift to Taylor, Henry to Harris, and Hawkinson to Pitts. And believe it or not, making those moves still gives me enough the week after to move Tim Patrick onto a 16 million receiver. The plan then would potentially be to maybe look at bringing back CD Lamb into the lineup or someone around that price point. So I think that's where I will be going personally.
Do you not worry with Pitts' matchup this week against the
To be honest, I think he's going to become a little bit matchup proof anyway. I know we had a bit of a down week last week, and I know it's not a great matchup this week against the Saints, but I think with the news of Ridley being out, I think those targets, whilst Ridley has been out, those targets have been mainly going to Pitts anyway. So I think he's essentially a receiver playing tight end, isn't he? Anyway, so I'm quite happy to spend the money and go there. My concern, I was looking at, maybe getting a Mark Andrews in or even a Gesicki, because Gesicki seems to be having the Darren Waller season this year. Darren Waller was another one that was in my considerations because of the Ruggs issue, but the problem there is that when you look at the targets, there's just not a massive target share in Las Vegas when you look, and it's quite spread across the team as well. So yeah, I'm just going to avoid that. I don't want to get burned again, and I think Pitts is probably a safe player between now and the rest of the season because he is on a passing offense at the end of the day, and they're missing the lead guy in Calvin Ridley, and we don't know how long that's going to be for either.
He's also had his bye week, hasn't he, as well? So that's nice.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. The only reason I worry this week is because I think they're going to use him like a wide receiver going forward. So I think Lattimore will shadow him this week. And that worries me because Gilmore shadowed him last week against the Panthers. And that's one of Gilmore's interceptions come off a pass to Pitts. So
yeah.
I do worry a little bit with Pitts just this week. And going forward, because at the end of the day, Russell Gage is doing nothing, is he? There, yeah. So you've got Cordarrelle Patterson and Kyle Pitts.
To be fair, I mentioned Jasicki's name as well, and he has. His bye week's week 14, but you're getting 5 weeks out of him up until that point, and he's 1.5 million less, which it's going to allow me to potentially look at someone like a Deebo Samuel or one of the Tampa Bay receivers, maybe. So I might go that way. I know I've not got much time to actually decide on this before I miss the deadline again for another week and end up with Hawkinson at tight end going into Sunday. But no, it'll be one of those two, I think.
I like Gesicki going forward. They're just using him like a wide receiver, Miami, at the minute. So, yeah, I like him going forward.
Quickly before we go and look at your team, what about this Sean's question? I've got 19.5 million for a wide running back or a wide receiver, and Taylor, Eckler, and Jones are possible running backs.
It's Taylor or
Taylor for me.
Yes, Taylor or Eckler for me.
Yeah. Agreed. I agree. I don't think we need to say much more than that. So let's get yours. Your team.
Do we have to?
Yeah. Well, you did send it to me, so here we go. Let's have a look. So. Yeah, talk us through this.
I've got the nice combo of Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp there. I've actually got another team with Matthew Stafford, but I paired him with Robert Woods. That team's not doing so well. So, but I did make a swap on this. I did use a free transfer this week. I had DJ Moore in this lineup, but I've swapped him with a little bit of spare change left over. So I've swapped him for Jamar Chase, who just can't stop catching touchdowns. And, the Bengals are a very pass-heavy offense. As we've mentioned, Gesicki, I love Gesicki's matchup this week against the Texans. The Texans are terrible. They're like 28th against opposing tight ends on the season. I love the core of the running backs. I think Jones could be in for a big week this week as well with Aaron Rodgers out. So, I like the balance of the team. It's sitting 357th, but it's sort of been gradually going up and up. It started off quite bad, this team, and it's been gradually going up and up and up, where I've been making subtle little changes here and there to it. So I like the balance of the team. Christian Kirk should be okay this week. AJ Green's he's on the COVID list, and Nuke is I don't know if he's going to be playing this week or what. He's very injury prone at the minute. So I like the balance of the team here. There's not much I would change. I have got one more transfer I could make if I wanted to.
We actually mentioned, didn't we, last week, Mark, about you can. There's still a lot of season to be played yet with this. Yeah. You can make those steady increases. That team that I've just had on, it was 240, 250 ranked last week. A couple of weeks back, that was ranked at 700. So it just, especially if you've got a wild card intact as well, you're absolutely flying. But you can make up the ground if you own the right players at the right time. So I think it's important for anyone that's got a team that's ranked 600, 700, 800 and you're giving up on it. Don't give up on it. Just, make the right changes, hit the right players at the right time. Bring in the guys that have surpassed the bye week now so that you're not having to waste transfers there. And just stick at it. There's a lot of football still to be played this season.
This is what this team's been doing. Like you say, it was sitting about 500. It's been gradually every week just going up sort of 30, 40 spaces each week. And I'm hoping to make a run at it now.
Yeah. I think something occurred to me was Derrick Henry was at 72% last week. ownership. Yep. This week's ownership will tell us how many people are actually still trying.
Yeah.
If there's still like 20% ownership, then basically 20% of people have given up, I think, or they're Nick. And I've forgotten to do a transfer. Okay, let me get mine up. Interesting for this week, I'm having to use an extra transfer, so I'm taking a -8 this week.
That's not a bad thing, though.
No, because especially when you look at the 3 players I'm bringing in, I should think each of them would get more than that. I had to do it a couple of weeks ago. Brought in Elijah Mitchell, or was it last week? And he scored like 18 or 20 points or something. So I was well happy with the fact I'd done it. So basically, I planned my buys beautifully, so I didn't have to do 3 transfers in 1 week. But Derrick Henry then got injured, so that's what's happened with this team. It's actually moved up into the money now. It's 241st, the pod team. So I've got 3 teams in the money now, so I'm quite happy with that. So I'm bringing in Josh Allen because I just think he's getting better as the season goes along, and he's had his bye week. That's Najee Harris already talked about. Again, he's had his bye week. And Debo just seems to me to show that it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. He's just good, and he's consistent, and he's scoring. And again, he's had his bye week. So, yeah, that's where I'm headed.
That's a great team, that, Matt.
Well, yeah, actually, weirdly enough, those 4 are the top 4 scoring receivers. So yeah, I think
it's weird because it feels really balanced, and yet it's very receiver heavy, but it feels balanced because you've got Harris there and Patterson's had a really good year. So you could argue is touchdown dependent, but at 12 million, you're probably not too bothered anyway for a tight end. Most are.
He's one I would like to have changed, but I haven't got. I don't want to take a -8 for the tight end.
Yeah.
No, he's seen a lot of targets since he's gone there. I don't know if that's due to injuries at the minute, but I mean, I had concerns for fantasy with Zach Ertz going there. I just, as you said, Nick, he becomes very touchdown dependent, which most tight ends are anyway. But there was a lot of mouths to feed when he arrived there. Obviously, Nuke's out now, AJ Green's out. The opportunity's there for him to score touchdowns.
Yeah, Kyler Murray just doesn't look right though, does he? He's clearly carrying something, and that's affecting, like he did last year. It really affects his fantasy performance. So
I like the fact you've got Tyreek in this team as well, because I think there's something up with Travis Kelce at the minute. I don't know what, but Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. I think that is the Chiefs' problem. There's something up with Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes seems to be just targeting Tyreek Hill an insane amount now. I don't know if Travis Kelce's injured. I'm not too sure, but I like Tyreek Hill moving forward.
We were having this discussion on the 5-yard rush season-long group earlier, and I think it was Murphy put it. He said if you've got Kelce in, you probably don't drop him, but you don't bring him in.
No,
at the moment. And that's kind of, I've got him in like 2 of my 4 teams, and I'm just not sure whether to take the money and spend it somewhere else at the moment. So yeah, but we'll see. I'll see. He's a good player, so I'm going to give him a bit of a chance.
Oh, of course, yeah. He's the best tight end in football.
Yeah. Other than that, though, yeah, he's rubbish. Okay.
Modest compliments from Matt.
Yeah. So before we move on to talking about our Week 9 Red Zone teams, we have a public service announcement, don't we, Nick?
Oh yes, we do. Yeah, and we got a live demonstration from yourself, Mark, I believe, this week. No, we would not burden the viewers with that.
I'm doing it right now, Nick. You've got the wrong screen on.
As always, just a reminder that support for the 5-Yard Rush Daily Fantasy Sport show, and all our shows for that matter, is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for those all-important family jewels. Recently launched their 4th generation trimmer, which you can see on the screen, the Lawnmower 4.0, all across Europe. Fantastic features. We've spoken about them in great length, but Nice little pun there for you about the length and shaving.
Yeah.
You'll catch that one on, maybe.
Yeah.
So join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. You can get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code 5yard at manscaped.com. So at checkout, code 5yard, and that's at manscaped.com. That will get you 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Thanks very much, Manscaped.
Wow. That's right. I think Philip, who's joined us this evening, he's arrived just in time.
Just in time for Manscaped. If that is the only reason that you join, Philip, you might be winning a ticket this week.
Yeah, you might. Yeah. That's great. So before we talk about week 9, let's just quickly talk about. I just want to quickly talk about some other contests available on FanTeam. Tonight is they've got their showdown contest, which I think is it's called Pick 6 or something format they're doing now on all of these sort of individual games and stuff. And they've also got some satellites. So basically I think it's €1, so 92p, I think, for us.
92p, yeah.
Yeah, 92p, yeah. You can win some of the €12 tickets for Sunday's Redzone for the €8,000 contest. So I know Nick won some last week.
I
or
did
was it early this week? Did you
win some earlier this week. Yeah,
you won a 4 this weekend and stuff. So, yeah.
Is it for because it's the Redzone Monster? Is it?
Oh, was it for the one?
Yeah, the following week, because we've got the big one coming up in week 10, haven't we? So yeah, you've
absolutely right. Yep, absolutely right. It's the Monster for week 10 Monster, which is going to be far bigger.
Yeah. So for the sake of 92p, get yourself some teams in there. I know, Jack, you won some tickets as well this week, didn't you? And a guest that we've got coming on next week.
Yeah. And guest coming on next week actually won the whole thing, but he still just won the same number of tickets as everybody else. So should we build a team together, guys, for week 9? Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Let's do this. So let me get the screen shared again. So much admin on this show. There we go. Share that. Great. So you should be able to see the FanTeam. So as I show you every week, on the left you've got this filter for football, which is American football, and as you can see, this is all the contest. The satellite that we were talking about is there, 92p. If you scroll down a little bit, we've got our exclusive 5-yard rush free roll. So let's click in there, and here we go. So let's start with our quarterbacks. Josh Allen is the most expensive by quite a way this week because he's got a great matchup against a terrible Jags defense. Then there's Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, if he plays. I haven't really heard much about him yet. Have either of you?
I haven't heard much, no. I think he's going to play, but...
Yeah, I think he's trending upwards to play.
Yeah.
So in terms of those expensive guys, Jack, are you interested in playing them, or are you going to go a different type of roster construction?
I don't think you're going to want to do what I'm going to do this week. I'm going to go a little bit mad this week. But I mean, if you're going to play an expensive option for me, you play Josh Allen this week. That as you've mentioned, Mark, I know he's the most expensive option on the slate, but the Jaguars are just terrible. They're giving up the 26th most fantasy points on the year to opposing quarterbacks. It's a great matchup, and yeah, I don't think you mess about with it. If you're going to go expensive, it's Josh Allen for me.
Wow, even with that price as well, because it's by far the most expensive on the slate.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not going there, but yeah,
I think I know where you are going, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But what about you, Nick? You got any interest in any of these expensive guys?
I don't know if you class him as an expensive guy because he's coming in at 6 million less than Josh Allen, but I'm not jumping off the Joe Burrow train just yet, despite his poor performance last week, especially in the fourth quarter. But he still managed to put up 20.26 points last week in a below par game, and he's coming up against the Browns. You look at the Browns injury report, they are banged up everywhere. The D especially is banged up. 17 touchdowns they've given up to quarterbacks this year. And one of the glaring stats for me was that they actually, and more so because it's Joe Burrow, they rank really low in interceptions. So they've only had 3 thus far this season, the Browns defense. So there's not as much of a threat there either, I don't think. And I think if you're playing Burrow again, it just gives you that stack with Jamar Chase if you're going to start him again this week. I know T. Higgins hasn't performed how you would hope he would have performed, Mark, given that you've selected him for the last couple of weeks. But there's going to be that week where T. Higgins has a good week as well. And again, he's modestly priced this week at 13.5. So I think you've still got the opportunity to have another good stack this week with that Cincinnati offense, which is why I would be tempted to stick with Joe Burrow for another week.
He had a fairly good week last week, didn't he, T. Higgins?
Yeah, he gets targeted
yardage wise. Yeah. He dropped one, didn't he?
Yeah, he's I think he's his price. It depends on his price for T. Higgins. I think if you get him at the right price, he's a great play. I think possibly he might get to the point where it's actually Chase is a better option. Even though you're paying more, you've got far more upside. The Cleveland Cincinnati games, whenever I think about them, I always think of really high scoring games. Games that really shock you, back and forth and stuff. And that's been the case, I think, last year. I think it was, or in like 2 out of the last 3 or something like that. So I like him as well. But Jack, if you said you're going to do something mad, can I have a guess at who your mad quarterback is?
You can, yeah.
I don't think it's that mad. Is it Tua?
I do like, I do like the Texans-Dolphins game. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. Neither team can run the ball. So I think you're going to get a lot of passing yards in this game. I actually like Tyrod Taylor as well. Coming back.
Okay.
You've got the rushing upside. You've got the rushing upside of Tyrod Taylor, and I think that's a very cheap way to go. And then you can just pile on the receivers. And I would certainly be stacking him with Brandon Cooks if I was going to use Tyrod.
So when he played in that Cleveland Browns, did he get injured during that game or was it afterwards? Because actually he scored pretty well.
I think it was afterwards. I think he played the full game. Yeah. Yeah.
So wow. Okay, I wouldn't have predicted that.
It's a very bold call. It's a wild call, but in the last 4 weeks, the Miami Dolphins have given up. They're dead last in the NFL to opposing quarterbacks, giving up the most fantasy points.
So I think I like Tua, as I said. I really like. I wish I could actually play, because you only play 3 players from one team. I really wish I could play a complete onslaught of Miami. Waddle and Parker and Gesicki with him. I really would love to, but FanTeam rules don't let you. But actually, I think Kirk Cousins has a little bit of possible low-owned value as well. We saw the back end of the Baltimore D is just awful, absolutely awful. They play primarily man coverage, and Jefferson is actually fantastic against man coverage. He has some brilliant stats for it and stuff. And I could really see Cousins being a really good sort of start of a stack there, possibly bringing it back with the Marquise Brown as well and stuff. Because he's another sort of mid-range price one I quite like. Anybody else, Nick, who tickles your fancy before we start picking a player?
Dare I say Daniel Jones from the New York Giants this week?
Don't do it. Do not do it.
Yeah. I dangled that carrot for you, Jack.
We have not got enough time to go on about the New York Giants on this podcast, YouTube channel, whatever tonight. We have not got enough time.
Do you know what though? The reason I say Daniel Jones is, from a story standpoint, we don't know how what's happened this week is going to rock the Las Vegas Raiders, and we know that the Giants are just stinking every week. They were close last week against the Chiefs. There's only 2 games this year, one against the Rams, the other against the Cowboys, who you could argue, depending on which analyst you listen to, 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 in terms of the NFC power rankings at the moment. And those are his only 2 bad games where he scored 4 points. Anything other than that has been minimum 16 points, and he's broke 20 points a few times as well. So if you are going a little bit cheaper, a little bit further down the list, then I think against the team that has been rocked by that Henry Ruggs news this week, it could go one of 2 ways, that I think, and it's whether you want to risk that it might go in your favour.
Can I go against that?
Yes,
of course.
I would play the Raiders defense this week. They get the highest pressure in the NFL on quarterbacks at the minute.
Which is crazy because it feels like they hardly bring pressure at times as well.
Exactly. It's a crazy stat, but at the minute they're the top at doing it, and we all know what happens to Daniel Jones when you put him under pressure.
Jack clearly knows, Nick. We love lots of defensive analysis on this show.
The defense has picked itself now.
Let's get the Raiders in.
Okay. So I'm thinking that for the purposes of this, I'd be quite interested to see what a Josh Allen lineup actually can look like. So I think, generally speaking, if everything's all things equal, Josh Allen, I think, is the best play. So, guys, are you against me doing this? But I think let's see what a Josh Allen lineup looks like.
He's the best play, but I do like Nick's play of Joe Burrow as well.
Oh, I'm outvoted then. Okay, fine. This is a democracy. I'm outvoted. We'll go for that. I'll just build my own Josh Allen lineups when you're not recording, and then I'll see what it looks like. It's easy. Okay.
No one wants to play Tyrod Taylor, then, no?
Yeah. Okay, so on to running back. Now, Christian McCaffrey is the most expensive, again, by $2 million. Then Kamara, and then Cook. Bit of a drop there between McCaffrey and Cook. I think there's some really good options, actually, mid-priced options here. But let's start at the top. CMC, I haven't seen any reports today. I saw yesterday he wasn't doing much in practice. So I'm not expecting him to play, but
I think he's pretty much confirmed that he is gonna be back.
Okay.
I think I think he's been fairly limited at practice, which I wouldn't be going there anyway, but 21.5, I think, given that he's had 2 injuries now this season, he picked up the knock early on, came back on in week 3, and then went back off again. I think even if he does play, I don't think he's going to be on anywhere near the snap count that you'd want from a 21.5 million running back. So I would be 100% swerving Christian McCaffrey this week. I hope there's people that are stupid enough to play him just because of his name and he's back there on the slate again. But I'm not going anywhere near Christian McCaffrey this week.
I agree.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. Any of these other high price running backs you're interested in, Jack?
There's 2. I like Alvin Kamara and Nick Chubb. In this, the Browns are just so bad at the minute, and they're just gonna have to run the ball. You can run on Cincy as well, so I like that matchup there. And the only worry I have, I like Kamara in this matchup, but the only worry I have is if they start Taysom Hill at quarterback, because we've all seen what happens when Taysom Hill's the quarterback.
Yeah,
it's one of the reasons why I'm going bald.
Do you think, because last year Taysom Hill was a fantastic fantasy quarterback, not necessarily a great quarterback. If they were starting him, we didn't talk about this with your quarterbacks, would you consider playing him?
No.
Okay. There you go, top analysis you'd expect here.
I can't. Taysom Hill, to be fair as well, Trevor Siemian looked okay in that game. That when he come in, and he won the game as well. So
against the Bucks.
Whether they go to Taysom Hill or not, I don't know. But Taysom Hill, just there's something about me infuriates me for fantasy, and he annoys me because he just brings that whole offense down. Like he limits Alvin Kamara. The game against the Giants this year when we beat them, I went on a bit of a Twitter rant at Sean Payton, mainly because I had a lot of Alvin Kamara in my DFS teams. He kept giving it to Taysom Hill on the goal line. So, yeah, I would play Alvin Kamara, but I want to see who's starting at quarterback.
I think with Taysom Hill, I think he's not a bad play actually at quarterback because he is greedy and he does run, and they still run trick plays through him. I'm with you on I cannot bring myself to start Taysom Hill in any format. If he was the last quarterback on earth, I'd probably be ringing up the retired quarterbacks before I went to Taysom Hill. And I think what it is for the years where Drew Brees was quarterback in New Orleans, whenever Taysom Hill took the field, you knew it was some kind of scheme play, trick play, gadget play to get the ball to Taysom Hill. And you would think, oh, well, Taysom Hill's in the game. Defense is going to be wise to this. And every single time, it seemed like Taysom Hill ended up in the end zone. And that drove me absolutely bonkers. And nothing against you, Taysom Hill, if you're a viewer or a listener of the show. I do apologise, but I can't stand you, mate.
Can I just butt in as well? Sorry, guys. Someone has actually guessed my tight end on Twitter.
Well, for the people who aren't watching Twitter, we'll save it till we talk about it. Okay?
We will.
Okay. Let's look at some cheaper guys. Anybody, any love for the Patriots and Damian Harris?
It's a tough matchup this week for Damian Harris. I don't.
He's been so good though.
Yeah, he has, and he's been getting it in the end zone as well. But this is a tough match. The Panthers are very good against the run. I mean, the second overall in the year against the run.
So I've got a cheap guy I think is an interesting player, and that's Zach Moss at 12.6 million. Not because I think he's not because he's necessarily a great fantasy player. I just think that this is such an easy matchup for the Bills, and there's going to be a lot of scoring. And I suspect also there'll be a lot of ownership around Josh Allen and Diggs and Sanders, etc. And if Moss gets half the touchdowns, then I think he's a great leverage play from the others. And at that sort of price, I think he allows you to pay up elsewhere.
They're playing the Jags, aren't they? The Bills this week.
You can play anybody against the Jags.
You say that the Jags they've given up the second least amount of fantasy points in the last 2 weeks to opposing running backs.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about that. They've not faced the Bills. They've not faced Josh Allen.
No. I just with them two Bills running backs, I just find it's just pick your poison. It could be Devin Singletary 1 week. I think it was 2 weeks ago, Devin Singletary, it was like a 60-40 split in Devin Singletary's favour. And then last week, it was like 60-40 split back in Zach Moss's favour. So it's kind of pick your poison, and they're very hard to predict. I personally, and Josh Allen's the best running back on that team, let's be honest. So I would personally stay away from the running backs of the Buffalo Bills.
I'm definitely having him on one of my free lineups just in case he's the one who falls into the end zone 3 times or whatever. And, Diggs and Beasley and all of them are just watching. Nick, what about you? Any cheap running backs and stuff you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, some of the more expensive guys, Dalvin Cook and Zeke, I've got my eye on both of those this week. Zeke especially because the Cowboys look a little bit banged up at receiver. And you look back over his last couple of weeks, he is, I think he was targeted 6 and 9 times. He's getting somewhere between 15 and 20 carries per week, which is absolutely more than enough for Zeke Elliott. In terms of the cheaper guys, interestingly, I think there is a case to maybe look at playing Josh Jacobs, and dare I say it, I am going to say it, and I feel like it's going to get shot down here by the New York Giants correspondent on the pod. But is there a case to is it cheap enough that you can afford to play Devontae Booker and Josh Jacobs this week? And I say both because I think Las Vegas might lean more on Josh Jacobs going forward. Now that they're slightly thinner than they were at receiver, Booker's been really productive when he's played. Giants are super thin at receiver. And when you actually compare the two defenses, they're both pretty much as bad as each other against running backs. They're almost sort of like side by side in the rankings against running backs. In fact, they are. I think there's 0.1 fantasy points per week given up against running backs difference between them. So I think there's potentially a case there to maybe look at Josh Jacobs because of what's happened this week. And I think now he's got a clean bill of health. So he had a bit of a toe injury, I think, earlier in the season. He seems to have shaken that off. And I think, Devontae Booker has been productive in the opportunities he has been given. His last 4 weeks, he's put up a 20, a 14.6, a 17.5. He did have a low week sandwiched in between there at 10.9 as well. Sadly, it doesn't look like there is anyone this week that's going to give a Boston Scott kind of output. If I was picking anyone, it would probably be Mark Ingram. First week back on the Saints. 7 mil, they might want to give him the goal line touches. He could be a sneaky play. I say a sneaky play. I'm going to have to put him in a lineup because I called Boston Scott a sneaky play last week and regrettably didn't put him in a single lineup. But yeah, I think that's probably the lowest I'd be going this week is Jacobs or Devontae Booker if I was looking at running backs.
I like Booker. He looked like Saquon Barkley against the Chiefs the other day. So,
well, the injured Saquon Barkley or the fit one?
No, he saw a lot of receiving work as well. So yeah, I like the Booker call. The Giants are just beat up at wide receiver. Sterling Shepard's definitely out this week. Kadarius Toney's touch and go 50-50 whether he's going to play. So Kenny Golladay, yeah. Is he even still on the Giants? I don't know. But
even if he plays,
still play football?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why people keep talking about it.
Evan Ingram doesn't catch footballs, so it's just I do like the Booker call as a cheap play. I would worry with Jacobs because Kenyon Drake is seeing a lot of the receiving work. That's my only issue with Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, that's always been something that's held Jacobs back a little bit. I think if you do play him, you've just got to stomach the fact that you're going to get maybe somewhere around 15 to 17 carries for him. On a good week, you might get 20, 22. You're likely going to get goal line work, but you're going to get absolutely nothing in the receiving game. Any receptions he does have are going to be a little dump offs for 2, 3, 4 yards a time.
So I love the Mark Ingram call as well, Nick.
Yeah. So we need to pick some plays now because I got outvoted. I'm definitely choosing here. I'm going to go Nick Chubb because he's my favourite player anyway, and he fits in brilliantly as we pick Burrow first of all. So Nick Chubb is the play. Who are we doing now, boys? Are we going expensive? Are we going cheap? We'll just pick 2 running backs at the moment. We might come back and pick a third at the end.
I think we slot Booker in.
Yeah.
We won't have Raiders defense then now. Okay, cool. So we have spent whatever that is, less that. We've got 89 million left to spend anyway. Okay, wide receivers. These are all a little bit cheaper this week. I think there's lots of options and there's lots of similar sort of plays. So Stefan Diggs is the most expensive, which still surprises me because he's not really producing generally. Jamar Chase second most, and then Jefferson, Lamb, DJ Moore, who is what's happened to him. And then you get down to sort of the Thielens, Cooks, Browns, who in any one week could have a good, any week could be, could break the slate, etc. So who do you like here, Nick?
Well, in answer to your question there, Matt, what's happened to DJ Moore? Sam Darnold seems to have happened to DJ Moore. Whatever has happened to Sam Darnold seems to have happened to the entirety of the Carolina Panthers offense. Receiver-wise, I think if you're going to pick Burrow, I think Chase is likely to be highly owned again, but do you risk not stacking him? Do you stack both Chase and Higgins potentially at his price? And I know we mentioned that last week as a double up. But there's going to be a week where it comes off, and at worst case scenario, if Chase doesn't produce what Higgins does, his high ownership probably means that you've not lost anything on the pack there. The player I really like there's 2 that I like this week. I really like Brandon Cooks against Miami for fairly obvious reasons, really. He's so heavily targeted. I actually couldn't believe the target stats when I looked. The closest receiver to him is 19 targets, Nico Collins. The closest actual across the team is Jordan Akins with 25, but Brandon Cooks has had 70 targets. It's astronomical. 585 yards as well to go with that. He doesn't always get the touchdowns, but Miami do give up the second most points to the position. The only other play I like this week at a cheaper price is maybe one of the Raiders wide receivers. Hunter Renfrow tends to get a lot of receptions, but not massive yardage. If Bryan Edwards ever does anything at all, it seems to be big play or nothing. So I'd be tempted to maybe go with Hunter Renfrow as a bit of a differential there, because I think Darren Waller might be highly owned this week.
See, Bryan Edwards would be my pivot. I think Hunter Renfrow is going to be highly owned on all of DFS this weekend.
Interesting.
And like you say, Nick, you get the deep bombs to Bryan Edwards. So
yeah, you get them big plays to Bryan Edwards, and I think it's time that he's got to step up now. He's the receiver that has to step up. He has to become that receiver that they were looking for when they drafted him the season before this one. So I don't mind that at all, especially because he is 2.3 less than Renfrow as well. What I do like about Renfrow is, especially because this is PPR, he does get a lot of receptions, but just not always the yardage to go with it. So I think both of those could be nice plays this week. It could go one way or the other.
I like. Sorry,
Mark.
Go on, Jack.
I was going to say, what's your guys' thoughts on Rashard Bateman this week against the Vikings?
Isn't Watkins potentially back this week?
I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about Watkins. I mean, the Vikings are they're dead last in the last. Let me just grab that up. The last 2 weeks, they're dead last against opposing wide receivers for giving up the most fantasy points.
It's a really stackable game, isn't it? It's a whole really stackable game at the Vikings. I mean, obviously, the problem is that both Jefferson and Thielen are expensive. They're both in the top 6. So the chances of both of them hitting value is pretty remote. But you can definitely stack them with the Ravens. I mean, I still prefer Marquise Brown personally, but
I just think I think Rashard Bateman's going to become the alpha wide receiver one on that team. And I think it's a good thing for Brown that they've drafted Rashard Bateman, because it improves Brown's fantasy value massively. Like, he is not a wide receiver alpha one. He's a great wide receiver, don't get me wrong, but he's not an alpha wide receiver one for fantasy. And I don't know. I like Rashard Bateman this week. I've just got a funny feeling that we're going to get a breakout game this week.
Well,
for Rashard Bateman.
we need to save some money and stuff, he's an option. Can I just talk, Nick, about your double wide receivers and stuff? I think the best pairing would be Jefferson and Thielen, but they're too expensive. But I really like Waddle and Parker, as we've already talked about, going up against Houston. Can we play them even without Tua?
No, for me, I don't really like playing Devontae Parker at the best of times. Jalen Waddle's had a good season, but Parker's just disappointed me one too many times in the past. I'd be more tempted to go Gesicki and a Miami receiver like Waddle before I went with Parker.
He got 8 receptions last week against a very tough Bills defense. Obviously, he's got a lot easier matchup here. I think this is almost one of those where, for me, I feel like I'm glad I got 4 entries to the free roll, because I might be doing lots of combinations of Miami receivers. I never play Miami. I never play rookies either. But it just seems like that's where I'm going this week.
I think Brandon Cooks is a smash play this week.
Yeah. I mean, I would always run him back with Brandon Cooks, definitely.
Yeah,
100%.
There is a receiver a little bit further down if you wanted to cut cost. I would say just keep an eye on the status of the receivers there. But CD Lamb is dealing with a sprained ankle that kept AJ Brown out. Not AJ Brown, sorry, Antonio Brown the other week. Amari Cooper is carrying a bit of a hamstring injury. They've both been limited But if for whatever reason one of those or both of those can't go, I do think that Cedric Wilson is not a bad little play at 8.8 if you were looking at a budget receiver.
Isn't Michael Gallup due back this week?
Apparently, well, he's due back, but apparently Mike McCarthy said that he wants to see another week's work in practice from him. So again, one of the things I suppose is they say one thing to the press, and then before you know it, they're suiting up on Sunday. Just something to monitor. But if there's a couple of receivers out in Dallas, don't ignore Cedric Wilson at 8.8.
No, I do like that shout. So we need to make a decision on, first of all, we're playing Higgins or Chase, because we've got to play one of them, I think, don't we?
Can we start with Chase? I think you get Chase.
I think so, because it seems like we've got some good options, some good cheaper options, don't you think?
Yeah.
Chase and Cook for me, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Agree. Yeah, put in Cooks. And what we do, should we move on to tight end and come back? Do you think? See how much money we've got left here?
Yeah, we'll see where we're at after the tight ends.
Let's see where we are. Here you go. Favourite subject, tight ends. Darren Waller, our favourite, is the most expensive. Then Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts, and then Gesicki, the wide receiver, pretending to be a tight end. What do you think about this lot, Jack? Are you going to name the tight end that you're talking about all show?
Well, someone has guessed it. He's just popping on my matchup spreadsheet at the minute, and it's Tyler Conklin of the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I've got him written down.
Against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens in the last 2 weeks ranked dead last to the position. They ranked dead last to the position on the whole season. They're giving up the most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. I'm just getting my notes up here. The Vikings are also passing at the 5th highest rate in the NFL. So, there's plenty of targets to go around for Conklin, and I see him getting in the end zone this week. And I think he's a great pivot away. I don't think many people are going to be on him. I think everyone's going to go to the likes of Darren Waller, like Nick's already said. Maybe Mark Andrews as well. It's not particularly, like we mentioned earlier, it's not particularly great matchup for Kyle Pitts this week. Tyler Conklin's a smash play for me this week.
I think it depends on. I think if people go Josh Allen, though, the roster construction is almost going to force them to go very cheap down here.
Yep.
And I think CJ Uzoma is probably going to be. He's probably going to be a popular choice at that price as well. So Conklin could be a good pick off there. Funny enough, I've heard a lot of talk about Conklin though this week on pods and stuff. So I'm not sure he's going to be as unowned as you hoped.
Is Darren Waller a full go this week? Because I've heard conflicting reports.
I haven't seen particularly either way.
Because I was just going to say Foster Moreau definitely becomes a play if Darren Waller's out.
100%. They play him in exactly the same way, don't they?
He's not showing on the injury report. So I would assume he's good to go.
He's full go, yeah. Okay. Just something to monitor.
Where is Foster Moreau? He's down at 4.8. Even he sometimes even gets in the end zone when Waller is there. He doesn't always need Waller to be out, but that's a very risky play. Maybe too risky for contests of these sizes. What about you, Nick? Who are you interested in here?
I, like yourself, Jack, I had written down Tyler Conklin for exactly the same reasons. And literally 2 bullet points, Ravens worst against that position. And ownership. A lot of people, I think, will be on Justin Jefferson, Thielen, Cook, if they're going to own a Minnesota player. Tyler Conklin probably going to be 4th on that list, maybe 5th, even if you're going to own Kirk Cousins as well. So that's pretty much it for me. I know we've mentioned Gesicki as well. Again, I like that play this week. I called out Tyler Higbee last week, which didn't really pan out because the ball went elsewhere. As it often can in LA, it could go to Cup more often than not. It does. It could go to Woods. It could go to Van Jefferson. Darrell Henderson had a decent week, which we called out again on the pod. That was due. So for exactly the same reasons again, I think like Higby last week, I think Jasicki is a good play this week. Poor defense against the position, seems a focal point in the passing game there in Miami. So I don't mind that. If I was being completely out there, we've mentioned about Pitts, and Pitts is going to get a lot of the attention. Does Hayden Hurst potentially become a beneficiary of that attention? Price down there at 6.3. I don't think you could play him with confidence on his own as a starting tight end, but if you needed to go budget, is there any harm maybe doubling up at that position for someone that's going to cost you 6.3, might find the end zone?
I think it could be a good way to get a unique stack as well, if you're going to play a unique Falcon stack. Although I'm trying to think who the stack would be because of how many people are, who aren't scoring fantasy points on that team. That'd be Matt Ryan, Patterson, and then Hurst, wouldn't it? That should be pretty unique. There's so few people scoring points on that team, though. I think we need to pick up Conklin, don't we? Now I wouldn't dare go against both of you on this again. So I think we need to put Conklin into the team.
I do like the Gesicki call as well.
Yeah,
that's a good matchup for Gesicki.
It's great for our lineup as well because it gives another correlation with Brandon Cooks. But okay, 48 million. Let's stick a defense in now. You wanted to put in the Raiders initially, but now we've got Booker at running back. If you want to spend up, Buffalo Bills is there's a reason they're 10.5 and the next one is 9.2, isn't there? Anybody cheaper defensive wise you're interested in?
How about the Saints?
8.6.
8.6 million.
Okay, yeah. I was hoping for somebody a bit cheaper, but we can put them in for the moment. Down here, I do like. Funny enough, I do actually like the Texans. If you're not going to play Miami players, just because Miami throw the ball so much.
Yeah,
I think you've always got a chance of interceptions there and stuff. So, and turnovers.
Well, neither of them teams can run the ball. So
I think that's what, and especially if you're playing a cheap defense, you want one who's going to have opportunities for turnovers, and obviously, two are throwing the ball a lot gives you that. So we'll put the Saints in at the moment. Where have they gone? 8.6. Cool. So we have 2 spaces left. We have almost 20 million positions, so we can pretty much do whatever we want, really.
Wow, we are loaded.
Absolutely. I don't think we're going to spend our money, to be perfectly honest. We might be able to upgrade Booker.
I think this week the lineup that I put together when I built my red zone, looking at this earlier, my lineup, I went with 3 receivers and 3 running backs. Normally I try to go 4 receivers, 2 running backs. But I actually think this week there is the case to be made with some of the higher end running backs to go 3 running backs with the budget one.
How about pairing our defense with a running back? So Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I'm absolutely not against that at all.
Okay, so that leaves us 19.9. We'll use the affordable option, which Nick loves so much. And
hey, do you know what? It's such a good tool to have in the NHL season long I play. The affordable is so good because there's so many different lines when you're trying to find an affordable defender, for example. It's just brilliant. Brilliant. Well done, FanTeam. Very well done.
So do we have to put in Stephon Diggs to get some exposure to that Buffalo game? I mean, we've got literally no exposure to it at the moment.
I listened to a pod the other day. He's running a different amount of routes this year to what he did last year. It's not the same. Last year he was out there an insane amount of snaps, basically. But I don't know. He's got to have a blow-up game soon.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? You'd think so. I mean, you've got lots of options there. I mean, I like both Jefferson and Thielen this week, as I mentioned. I also like Marquise Brown as well. It's a bit of a run back opposite Conklin.
Yeah.
But I just think, make things simple, we should just put in Diggs.
Yeah.
And then we can leave in Booker. Because we want to spend as much money as we can.
I like that team.
Yeah. Are you okay with that one, Nick?
Yeah, I like it. I think like you just said. I think Diggs. There's going to be a week where he blows up. He has had touchdowns in his last 2 weeks. He's still getting the targets. 11 targets, 7 targets, 5, 11, 10. The targets are still there for him. There's going to be a week where he goes off. So I think that team. It's a balanced team. There's no area that you would say is particularly stronger than any other. I think it's a really nicely balanced team, and it's got some plays in there with the likes of Conklin, with Cooks, with Booker. If that team gets it right, it could go off.
Yeah, completely. There's plenty of upside in there. Definitely plenty of upside. So yeah, just quickly to recap the team, we've got Joe Burrow, quarterback. We've got running backs are Nick Chubb, Devontae Booker, and Alvin Kamara. Wide receiver, we've got Jamar Chase, Brandon Cooks, and Stephon Diggs, and Tyler Conklin at tight end position, and the New Orleans Saints defense. I think that's a pretty good team. I really do. So yeah, that's great. So one of us will be putting that into the contest this week.
All 3 of us can put it in, and we can just split the pot.
I've already done it. I literally built it at the same time as we were going.
Oh, really? So, wow, fantastic. So I need to give away a ticket, don't I?
Do you want me to give away mine? Someone's already guessed it. So
yeah, you can give away yours. Yeah, who's yours going to, Jack?
It was Adam at Touchdown Tips who's guessed mine. So he was the first one. Sean, you did guess as well, to be fair, but Adam just beat you to it, I'm afraid.
Great. So if Adam gets in touch with me or Nick, then we can get that arranged for you. For me, on air, I'm going to have to give it for Philip and his love of Manscaped, because we don't get enough of that on this pod. So, Philip, if you can also get in touch with me or Nick, we will. Oh, Nick's gone. And
is that enough?
Yeah, maybe some baby talk or something like that. I don't know. Oh no, he's back. He's back.
Yeah, sorry about that, fellas. I just decided to refresh my screen for some reason.
I can't. I did this to you the other week when I was I was sharing my screen. So yes, that's great. So Nick's going to give his one away after people have listened on the pod. That's great. Before we go, please remember to head over to FanTeam, join our exclusive content with £300 prize pool, £100 up top, free entry, and you can enter 4 lineups, which is great. And where can people find you, Jack?
You can find me on Twitter at JackHumphreyKM, and you can also find me on TikTok at the same username. So it's where all the cool kids hang out on TikTok.
This will never stop bringing me joy, Jack. And Nick, we can find you at.
You can find me at Nick of Wigan or on BBC 7 p.m. Saturday night. I will be on Dancing Away with Katia.
Best sign off we've ever had.
I was just going to say, Pitsy did actually get in touch this week, and he said, "Oh, I forgot the sign off the last couple of weeks." I was like, "Yeah, you have." He said, "You didn't remind me." I said, "Well, no, I didn't, but I haven't the previous times either." So I was waiting on a sign off from him, which has not come, unfortunately. So we've still got no sign off, Mark. So I'll sign this off in my own little way for the evening. Thanks very much, Jack, for coming on. We hope to see you on again soon. But until the next time, keep dancing. Keep dancing. We will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.